Today we're checking out this guy, the Tamron 35mm F2.8. As usual, breaking down in depth everything that you need to know about this lens to determine whether or not you should be considering it. Let's get started. Welcome guys, today we are looking at the Tamron 35mm F2.8. This was a lens lineup by Tamron that kind of flew under the radar. It was discounted by a lot of photographers really quickly, I think mainly because we have a lot faster and, let's be honest, better lenses available to us. I was one of those people, but after using these lenses for quite a few months now, I have to say I was wrong, and there are some aspects of these lenses that are just fantastic, especially the price. So guys, here's some specs for you on this little guy just to get you going if you haven't seen a lot on this thing. And if you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name's Stefan Malik. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this video and it helps you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways guys, as usual, we'll be jumping right into our review, starting with build. Okay, so a quick unboxing reveals the very basics. You get your typical paperwork. In this case, you get an anamorphic style lens hood, and of course the lens itself. To answer who this lens is for, I'd recommend it to a beginner to intermediate, most likely not for professional work, and definitely more so for a photographer than somebody working heavily with video. But we'll get into more of that later. The overall build is decent. It's a plastic or composite material, but it does feel well made. It's comparable to the Tamron 28-75, the whole line looks and feels very similar. Like most of Tamron's lenses lately, it does have 67mm filter threads, and this particular lens is a fantastic size, measuring only 3 3/4 inches long with the lens hood installed, and only 2.5 without. It weighs less than half a pound, so traveling and transport are going to be fantastic. As far as focusing goes, the electronically coupled focus ring turns easily and smoothly. As you can see here, the front element is recessed into this lens, and that's because as you focus, it does move in and out. This does worry me a little bit in terms of dust and moisture resistance. On the back of the lens, however, you will find a nice metal mount and a firm little rubber gasket, which is great to see on a lens of this value. It's also worth noting that there are no buttons or switches on this lens, and it's not image stabilized. Looking at the build and features overall, it is a bare bones lens. The value is fantastic, it's got a great size and weight, and the materials appear to be decent in quality. I give it 3.5 stars. So let's talk value next, and it really depends on who you are and what your needs are when it comes to value of this lens. Coming in at $300 US right now, or an MSRP of $350, for me, this thing's gonna have lots of great value if you're a beginner to intermediate photographer, primarily shooting photos. Its biggest competitor, size and price-wise, is probably going to be the Samyang or Rokinon 35 F2.8. It's even smaller, not quite as sharp, and you will sacrifice the macro capabilities as well. Of course, we've got the newer Sony 35 F1.8, a great all-around lens, but you're going to pay for it. There's of course the classic Sony 35 F2.8, way overpriced at this point, but still a great performing lens. And then there's the bigger, heavier, and faster Sigma 35 F1.4, so as you can see, there are quite a few options available to us. It's all going to depend on what you're looking for. As far as value is concerned on this Tamron 35 F2.8, I think it's quite good, and I give it 4.5 stars. Alright, it's why you're here, let's check out performance. And as usual, let's dive right into the autofocus of this lens. Now this lens does utilize Tamron's OSD motors, which compared to their RXD that you'll find in the 28-75 and the 17-28 is, well, louder, slower, and just not as good. Having said that, when you look at the price point, you have to have some give and take. It does suffer from some focus breathing, so with that as well as some autofocus noise, I'm not going to completely recommend this to video shooters. This is more of a photography lens. The manual focus experience does leave something to be desired as well, often taking several revolutions to find your focus. One thing to keep in mind about this lens is that it has an incredibly close minimum focus distance of only 5.9 inches and is able to produce a 1:2 magnification ratio, giving you some beautiful macro-like shots. Here's a few that I took. 35mm is going to be a great focal length for a lot of things, from landscapes to portraits and everything kind of in between. The autofocus works great for human as well as animal eye autofocus in my experience, and I love having the macro capability, which makes this lens a lot more versatile than others in my opinion. Despite having only 7 aperture blades, I quite like this lens's bokeh, especially at closer focusing distances. I also found that even when shooting in difficult lighting situations, chromatic aberration is very well controlled. Next, let's have a look at the sharpness and optics of this lens. Now, in the center wide open at f2.8, it's quite sharp. The corners, however, are reasonable. Nothing absolutely outstanding there, but as we stop down, you do get a bit of an improvement. And I say that all around, this lens is sharpest at about 5.6. And after about f11 here, we're going to start to see some softness back in the corners. But overall, throughout the entire aperture range, this is a very sharp lens. As far as distortion and vignetting are concerned, it does have a bit of distortion, but nothing compared to the 24 or 20mm. And as you can see here with a profile correction, it clears it right up. There's also a little bit of vignetting, but as you can see, stopping down to about f4 does take care of that. Overall, for what this lens is and considering the price, optically it's quite good. So looking at performance as a whole, it's got some good, it's got some decent, it's got some bad, but all around, I think it's great for the price, and I give it 4 stars for performance. So wrapping up guys, I think this lens is a great, inexpensive, and fun lens that you can throw in your bag and forget about. As usual, here's all my personal pros and cons. Rating this lens as a whole, I think it's a great little package they put together at a fantastic price, and therefore I give it 4 stars. And if you're a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And in this case, if you're on a budget looking for a great size and weight, sharp 35mm, and you don't do a heck of a lot of video work, well, I'd strongly consider this one. Well, there you go guys, there's my full in-depth review on this guy, the 35mm f2.8 from Tamron. Everything that you need to know, and if I missed something or if you have any more questions, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. If you want to pick this lens up, if you're ready to buy it, I'll leave affiliate links down there for you as well. And thanks so much for watching guys. If you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.